Blanc is a lovely looking cozy game that's directed at traditional co-op. At a 2-hour playtime, it's a bite-sized adventure perfect for an afternoon on the couch with a loved one or online with a friend across the globe. Although I wouldn't say it left a lasting impression on me, it isn't a game I regret playing. I won't be focusing on the story section for this review because there really isn't a super deep one here. During a winter storm, a frozen riverbed separates a family of deer and wolves, leaving behind both a fawn and a cub. Both of these younglings are frightened for their life, lost in what is nothing but a snowy maze. With no one left, the two join forces in an unlikely adventure to find their families and home. It's a heartwarming tale that anyone can really sympathize with, but in the case of this video game, it's also incredibly simple. There isn't any spoken or written dialogue, but the game provides just enough environmental storytelling to let the player know what's going on. Being primarily a co-op game, Blanc gives you various options for playing. You can play with a friend locally by splitting your Joy-Con, alone by controlling both characters each with one analog stick, or online with a friend. Most definitely you should be playing this with a friend as the experience feels tailor-made for it, and the game's pacing certainly benefits from it. While you can technically play this alone, it feels cumbersome to control two characters at once. I found myself constantly stopping to readjust my controls whenever characters would cross each other's paths on the opposite side of the Joy-Con. The 2-hour adventure primarily has you solving puzzles and platforming across buildings sunken into the snowstorm. You can move around, jump onto objects, call each other, and interact with some elements. It's a very simple system that equally is straightforward as much as it is approachable. While you may not find the puzzles challenging or as engaging, the trade-off is that just about anyone that can hold a controller should find this easy to play. In that perspective, I found it to be the perfect game to play with someone that traditionally doesn't play video games. It's simple, not too flashy, easy to pick up and play, and it's a super short game. Again, the trade-off being that myself, who does play video games frequently, didn't really feel all that engaged by it if I wasn't playing with somebody else that didn't play video games. In a way, I think it hits a sweet spot for just that very specific group of people. Blanc is presented in a black and white art style with 3D gameplay. It's a lovely combination that feels like a drawing coming to life. It's charming and delightful to look at. Playing on Nintendo Switch OLED, the contrast and dark colors really shine on that device, although it does share some caveats. Performance on Nintendo Switch struggles with some frame rate drops. The main issue is that it's not consistent and runs at an unlocked frame rate. Typically during cutscenes that averages around to about 40 frames per second, with the gameplay hovering between 25 to 32 frames per second. You can definitely feel the inconsistent frame rate. PC obviously has a much better performance, that's not a surprise, but I was a bit more surprised by how much more blurry the textures were on the Switch. Unfortunately, I think the hand-drawn come-to-life look takes a bit of a hit on the Switch because of this. The co-op does feel more natural on the Switch overall though, I just wish the performance was more consistent as well. Blanc features a beautiful collection of piano tracks that perfectly capture the feeling of a snowy tundra. It's reminiscent of the snow levels in many older retro titles. It complements the slower paced puzzle gameplay marvelously, giving you a nice feeling of a cozy night at home with nothing but a nice scented candle giving you warmth. Blanc to me feels like an alright co-op adventure game. It didn't overstay its welcome, but it didn't necessarily make the best case for its gameplay either. It's just fine for me, but good if you happen to fit that niche group of players where maybe someone who doesn't play video games is playing with someone who does. Performance on Nintendo Switch isn't the best, but it is playable and more importantly, is better tailored for co-op over a PC. I think if you have someone to play with, Blanc can be a great introduction into playing video games with someone that doesn't traditionally play them. And in that way, I think this game can be special. And if you don't fit into that niche, then it's just okay.